Here. All right, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Susan Wills. I'm with the JAMIS Software Corporation here in San Diego. I'm in the corporate office. I assume we have many people scattered around the mainland that are essentially out there. And I do see one person has a question. Edward, go ahead.
Nope, I don't have a question.
Okay, I am going to unraise your hand. Okay, so today's topic of conversation is how to use your Prime Expense module. And the first thing that I would like to show you is we have the presentation actually sitting out on your learning and development site. And I don't know how many of you actually have access to it. But Amy, I wanted to also let you know that I have it, and actually all the participants. If you take a look at your webinar band on the right-hand side, there is one of the segments that says handouts. I also posted the presentation there on your webinar. And if you go onto my home, if you go to learning.jamis.com, you go to my home. And if you go down to the Dawson training section, and I've got lots of training because I have many customers, but if you take a look at the Dawson technical training, and if you go down to accounts payable, you have the presentation right here, the Prime Expense User Approver Training. So if you'd like a hard copy, feel free to go grab it. And so what we are going to do today is discuss expense, and let us get started. Expense actually is very easy to use. I have been using eXpense since the late 90s in the JAMIS product. The Prime product is very easy to use. As far as the rules are concerned, what we have set up for Dawson is the expense reports that are created and are available to you we have 3 different ones, a set of 3 that's for Dawson Federal and another set of 3 for Dawson Technical. And each for Federal and Technical, you have 3 different forms available to you. You have direct travel, you have general expenses, and you have indirect travel. And these can be found on My Prime ERP under Time and Expenses, Expense Reports, and Create an Expense Report. So when you actually go into the database, and I'm going to use the actual database to demo this, you're simply going to go into My Prime ERP. You're going to choose Time and Expenses. You're going to go to Expense Reports, and that's when you're going to see your choices, whether you're a member of Federal or Technical. And depending on which group you're in, you might only see what is associated with your employee file. For instance, if you're a Federal employee, you probably only see the 3. The other side, you see the 3 for the Technical. Okay, so when you're actually going in to enter your expense report, you have a tip. The first thing you should do is enter the descriptions, the first date of your travel or the date of your expense, and a location if necessary. And then you should save your expense report, because at this point, what it will do is it will highlight an attachment and your per diem buttons if you need to use them. The employee, when you go into your expense report, are going to enter expense amounts on the appropriate day and expense category. And on your form, and we're going to take a look at the form momentarily, you have expense categories that are either going to be flagged as CP, which actually means company paid, something that you're not actually paying for, but you want to record the expense in the database. Or it's going to be employee paid, where you are actually going to get a reimbursement for whatever expense you put in there. The company paid amounts are included in the report total, so it's going to go in as a total expense against your database. But what you're going to see on your expense report is the expense application will subtract them from the report total to calculate the total due for the employee. So essentially what happens is the total expense on that report minus anything that's going to be company paid would be the amount due to you. So let us take a look at the database itself so we can see what's going on here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Dawson, and I will show you how to get in there. If you go to your prime company, and I don't know how many of you have been in there so far, but you're just going to dawson.jamisprime.com. I'm going to enter my username, and I am Susan Wills, and I'm actually, just so you're aware of this, I am using a test database today. You, when you're actually doing your expenses, are going to go directly into the Dawson company. I am going to use the test database today, but when you're going to put your expenses, you're going to go directly into the Dawson company, okay? And so I'm going to go into the test database. And as you can see, when I sign in, I am signing in as myself, okay? Taking a look at going to Dawson Technical, and I'm going to sit here under the UAT test database. I am actually going to change who I am. I am not going to sign in as myself. I'm going to go in as their user, and I'm actually going to use Shell's name because I am not set up in the database right now. So I couldn't do an expense. So I'm going to do it as expense as an employee. I'm actually going to log in as Shell. As you see up here, it says Sue Wills. I am now going to log in, and as far as the database is concerned right now, I am Shell. So I'm going to go over to my Prime ERP. I'm going to go to Time and Expense. I am going to go down to Expense Report, and it's going to bring me to the screen that I showed on the presentation where I get to choose which are the expense reports that I'm going to use. And I'm actually going to do 2 expense forms today because I understand that the lion's share of you all do something called, you get reimbursement for wellness. And so let's do that first. So what I'm going to do is wellness would be captured under general expenses, whether you are a federal employee or a technical employee. I'm just going to use the federal one right now. And what it does at this particular point is it opens up a new expense report. It numbers it automatically. The status is open, and this is where I create my expense report. It does know that I'm signed in as Shell, and I'm going to proceed with Shell. The first thing I need to do is put in a description, and I'll put this as a gym reimbursement. And perhaps what I'll do is I'll say this is for August of 2015. Okay? The date is the date that for this particular one, because this is a general expense, I normally use as my date is the date that I'm submitting this. I'll say it's the 12th. There's no reason for me to change this. Perhaps if you're instructed by your company to put it at the end of the month, feel free to do so. I'll use today's date. Okay? As you look at the form, though, what you see here is the top section are company paid expenses. The bottom section are employee paid expenses. In this particular case, it's my understanding that you get a wellness benefit. Let's say we get $25. Okay, so I'm going to put $25 next to wellness benefits, and I am just going to save it at this point. By saving it, it adds another tab up here called an attachment. And it's my understanding that you need to provide a receipt for your wellness expense, your $25 per month. And so all you'd have to do at this particular point is click on Attachment and click on Choose File. And perhaps you have your expense receipt on your desktop or some folder on your desktop. I'm going to choose an expense receipt. I'm going to open it. It's going to bring it into the database. It's going to ask you to name it. And I will say this is gym expense. And I'll call this August of 2015. And then you simply upload it. Okay? So what it's done right now is it's uploading this file and attaching it to your expense report. You can go in here and view it. In this particular case, it's really not gym expense, it's a hotel bill. If you had a problem with it, you could, if you want to delete it, you simply click on delete and it will get rid of it, or you can download it. If for some reason you wanted to have a paper copy of it, you can download it at that point. I am happy though just to attach it to my expense report. I'm going to close this now, and save it one more time. And as you can see up here, it is in an open status. I can review this is a simple JAMIS reimbursement. I have the $25. Everything looks right. The only thing else I have to do is I need to now tell the database who is going to get this expense. So I go into the tab right up here that says expense distribution. And based on my personal job list, I get to choose what job I'm going to charge this to. In Shell's case, I'm just going to charge his indirect job here. I'm going to say OK. And it's going to ask me, you must enter a percentage. So therefore, this has to be fully distributed. I'm going to put 100% to that job. If for a particular reason, if this ever happens and you had multiple jobs that you had to spread this to, all you have to do is hit add, and you can distribute it to another job. Perhaps I make it 50-50 or something like that. But right now, I already have it 100% distributed. And so I'm going to cancel this particular line. And I have 100% of this going to job 95,000.3. And I'm going to say OK. And right now it goes green, so I know I have something underneath there. I could save this now. My job or my expense is fully distributed. You have other tabs up here that can show you exactly how you distributed it. If I look at the distribution summary, it's going to show me that I took 100% of this $25 and put it against this job. I also can look at my approver information. When I submit this expense, who's going to be approving it? In this particular case, Shell's expense is going to be approved by Amy. And so I know right now there are no results. That means I haven't submitted it, nor has she approved it. But after she approves it, we could come back here and you'd see exactly what the situation was when she approved it, or if perchance she rejected it, why she rejected it. So I'm going to close this. So right now I'm taking a look at this. I know my approver information. I know my distribution summary. I've already done the distribution for my expense. If I got this all messed up and I do not want to save it, all I have to do is hit delete. It will delete this expense report and I can start all over again. I do have my attachment underneath here. It's going green. It knows that there's an attachment in here. So at this particular point, it kind of looks like I'm ready to submit it. If for some reason you wanted the paper copy of this particular expense report, all you have to do is click on the print expense report. And this will give you a paper copy of what you have just put together. Plus, it's going to tell you which form that you use. So this, in this case, I'm using DF General. Gives you all the particulars as to this expense. It also is going to show you down here. It's going to show you your distribution, and it also shows you your approver information. Okay? So everything's looking good to me. So this is the form that I think the majority of you are going to be using. It's just general expenses. So all you have to do at this point is you go to the bottom of this form, and we're going to click Submit. All right, so you can see up here, you successfully submitted expense report number 5, and it's telling me it has been submitted. Okay, so we are done with that. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the general expense? Or Amy, do you have any comments you'd like to make in regards to the general expense?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, so it's my understanding that the vast majority of people will be using this form for that particular reason. Is that correct?
Yeah, for wellness and then for the Sam's Club, Costco.
Okay, outstanding. Yeah. Okay, so that is a real simple expense report. So what we're going to do now, though, is we are going to go in there and we are going to do a travel expense now. So I'm going to go back to expense reports. Okay, so that has already been submitted and we're waiting for Amy to take care of business on that one. But I'm going to now take a look at doing a travel expense, and direct travel and indirect travel, as far as the forms are concerned, are almost identical. So I'm going to go in and use a direct travel. I am going to go in here and create one. Let's see. Go into direct travel. Again, I'm still signed in as Shell, so I'm going to use his ID to produce this expense report. And so I'm going to go in here and say he is now traveling to San Diego. Okay, he's doing implementation meetings. Okay, you can put a detailed description in here if you need to. You don't have to, and I can say traveled with Amy. I don't know, whatever you want there. And of course I misspelled it. Okay, travel with Amy. At this point, again, you're going to put it in a date. And let's say that Shell traveled to San Diego the week of the 3rd. Okay, so I'm going to put the date down. And where did he go? You simply hit this magnifying glass. This is when a location matters. When you're doing your general expenses, you do not need a location because the location is actually driving your per diem amounts. With the general expenses, per diem amounts do not matter. Here they do. So I'm going to look for a location code, and I actually know he's traveling to San Diego. And so I am going to now search for San Diego. And you have tables sitting out there in your database for both CONUS and OCONUS. Now, CONUS is the continental United States or the mainland. OCONUS is going to be Alaska, Hawaii, and other countries around the world. Okay, so I'm looking for San Diego. I'm going to choose San Diego. So I see here it's City of San Diego, County of San Diego, and I'm just going to click on this. All right, so it now knows the location. So I put in a description, a date, and a location. And at this point, I am going to save this form. I'm just simply going to click on save, and what you'll see is it'll bring in the per diem for San Diego. You see this little green thing that says P, view per diem rates. So now it knows that the San Diego per diem rates starting October the 1st of 14 is $142 for lodging and $71 for M&I. Okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to fill out the first day, and then I can show you how to copy it over. And so I'm going to put in a 2, and let's say Shell started in San Antonio. And he is going to go to, he's going to San Diego from San Antonio. And the first section I have here are company paid expenses, and the second section I have is the employee paid expenses. And as you can see, because we're on the direct travel form, it's quite a bit different than your general expenses. Okay, so it's my understanding that the company pays for airfare and for car and lodging, company paid, and the other expenses will be happening down here. So let's start off with something that's going to be replicated day in, day out. Obviously, airfare won't be, or fuel, or internet, maybe internet, but lodging, usually your hotel. Let's say Shell got a hotel down by Mission Bay for $200 a night. Okay, so that's the only daily expense I'm concerned about right now. So what I'd like to do at this point is I am going to go in there and copy this over. He was here for the full week, so I've got the first day taken care of, August the 3rd. I'm going to say replicate that for 4 days. And so I'm just going to put 4 in here and hit copy, and look what happens up here. Okay, it's going to increment the days, so I have now the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. It also copied over my hotel expense. However, he checked out on Friday, so I'm just going to take Friday out. So I have my 4 hotel expense in there, $200 a night. And now I'm going to start filling in the other information that's associated with this travel expense. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to take care of my M&E, and you've got it on the single line, and so you're going to use the per diem. So all you have to do is go up here on this button and click on per diem, and your process is you get 75% of the max M&I per day on the first day and the last day of travel. And so it's going to ask me the question. The last column is the last day of the trip. And I'm going to say yes. And do I want to overwrite existing per diem fields? I'm going to say, I'm not going to check this because I have put something already in my lodging that I want to hold on to. So I'm going to say okay now. And as you can see here, it's bringing in my M&I per diem, 75% on the first and the last day, and then the full complement of $71 per day. And that's just reading this table that we brought in. Okay? What it's also doing, however, is it's replicating the per diem here. And this is a question I have for Amy, and I know you've muted yourself right now. But this is the way your database is set up right now, and I'm not sure this is exactly what you want to do. If your lodging is always company paid, I don't know if we need a lodging under employee paid expense. What say you?
I mean, 99% of the time it is just company paid.
But there's a chance that it might not be. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so all you're going to have to do then, I mean, this is not a big deal, is you just go down here and eliminate the second per diem. As you notice, Shell put $200 because that was his actual hotel cost. Now down here, it's just simply bringing in the per diem, okay? And so I'm going to just delete these. So he only has one hotel per day, okay? So what we have now in here is we have your lodging, you have your M&I, at 75% for the first and last day, and then the full complement in the middle. I am going to add a few more things. For example, baggage fees. He traveled from San Antonio, and typically what the nice airlines do to us now is they charge us $25 coming and going if you have a bag. Let's see, what else? Up here, he has a rental car. And so when he turns in his rental car, the rental car was $225. And what else would he have? Airfare, his airfare to and from San Diego, let's say it was $425. Okay. As soon as I hit enter, it saved it. So we've got airfare, we've got his lodging, we've got a rental car, we've got baggage fees, we've got his per diem M&I. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to add. Okay, he's got to put a little gas in his company or the car that he rented up here. Let's say he put $35 of gas in there. Okay, so that is a pretty typical expense report. But what I wanted to point out is you have this section up here where the company is paying for his airfare, his lodging, and his rental car. And he's actually footing the bill for his gas, for his baggage fees, and potentially for his M&I, his per diem. Okay, he's going to get reimbursed for that. So if you see down here, the total expense for this entire report is the $1,854.50, but it's going to subtract the company paid to calculate what is due Shell. And so despite the fact he's put together an expense report for $1,800, he is only going to be reimbursed the $369.50 based on the fact of what side of this form he's using, okay? He's put it in the company paid up here, which he will not get reimbursed. Anything in this section, the employee paid expenses, will be reimbursed. I'd also like to note that you see these boxes are now green. They've been highlighted. If we take a look at the per diem, if you remember the per diem for San Diego, maximum lodging was $142. He has exceeded the maximum lodging. And so the system is going to automatically calculate what the unallowable amount is in regards to per diem. And so he has a $200 hotel, so he has an unallowable amount of $58 right now. And so as you can see on the very bottom, that's where it captures that $58. Now, Amy, the way it's set up right now, and I just want to verify it with you, is it's set up that it will capture that unallowable expense in the expense job that he's going to designate on this form. We haven't quite gotten there. But it's going to put it to a cost element that's unallowable but billable. And it was our understanding that It's a kind of a case by case with your clients. If something is in excess of per diem, it's a client by client decision as to whether or not they're actually going to pay you.
Right.
Okay, so what we have done is 80-20 rule, and we're going to decide which way we should go. Right now, what it's doing is it's assigning it to an unallowable element that is billable. Okay, obviously it's not part of your rate calculation, but whether or not you can bill your client is kind of your decision. And it's my understanding that manually, later on, if you decide a client will not bill it, we can then reclass it to an unallowable, unbillable element. But right now, it's going to be able to be billed. Is that correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the way it's going to work right now. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we've captured the majority of what you would be doing. Okay, but that's what this green box is for. It's telling you you've got an unallowable amount, and it's dropping it right down there to let you know exactly what's going on. Right now, we have already saved this report, so everything is looking good. But we have a few things that we need to do. First of all, expense distribution. I would like to go back to my PowerPoint just for a second. And let me go to distribution right here. And let me just show you the different ways you can distribute these costs. Now with the wellness, it was real simple. I'm sure you shoot it off to the same job each time. When you're talking about travel expense, I just want to let you know what you have as options here. Okay, the expense report distribution can be done at 4 different levels. Okay, it can be done at the expense category level, you know, by car or by hotel. It can be done at the day level. All of Monday's expense went to here, there, or everywhere. You can do it at the cell level. Each cell you can denote where it goes. Or you can say this entire expense report is going to go someplace. But the most important thing to remember is you can distribute it to more than one job, but the bottom line is you have to, the distribution needs to be 100%. And so when all is said and done, everything on the report is going to be distributed. And the distribution tab will go green when it's actually done. So the note is no matter what level you distribute expenses to, you have to go through expense distribution and distribute 100% of everything that is out there. So let's take a look at the database. And so what they're talking about is the 4 levels. And the first level is I can say, okay, let's see here. We have airfare. We have airfare of $425. I can say this entire category. If I click on this little box here, I can say airfare was actually being picked up by job 36. And 100% of that line is going to them. And I'm going to say okay. And you notice now this box is green, and it means that this entire line, just this line, is going to that particular job. I also have the ability to say, okay, Amy generously offered to pay all of his Friday expenses. I can click on this box, and this will have to do with everything that isn't, well, actually I don't want to do it in that row because it's his airfare. Let's say the Monday expenses, okay, can go to a different job, and I'll put it to job 52. And I'll say 100% of Monday's expenses are going to job 52. Okay? Again, you can see this box is green. So this line is going to one job. This whole day is going to another job. You also have the ability to go in here and let's say fuel. I can click on this cell itself. And this is pretty unusual. I haven't seen too many people have to do this. But if you click on the same icon, I can distribute just that cell to, let's say, we'll send it to job 36 also. I don't have a whole lot of jobs to choose. But once I've done that, you can see this goes green. So it shows me there's a distribution here, there's a distribution here, and there's a distribution for that particular day. But the normal way I would distribute my report is I'd actually go up to the expense distribution. Now, if I was traveling to San Diego, perhaps Shell is traveling to San Diego and this is an indirect expense, he would choose his indirect job and probably distribute it 100%. So what I'm doing right now, because I have 3 sub-level distributions, I am going to distribute 100% of whatever is left to this particular job. Again, I just want to add that if you wanted to distribute this like 50-50 between 2 jobs, or you could distribute it to 100 jobs if you had to, you simply add another line, choose another job, but the percentage cap has to be 100%. And so therefore, if I wanted to do a 50-50 and I do something like this, I'd have to edit this because I've already gotten fully distributed. I'd have to make this 50% and then add a line and put it to another job and maybe make this 50%. But it's going to be looking to make sure that you've got it fully distributed to 100%. And I'm going to cancel this one. I don't want that. I'm going to delete that line, delete that line. Okay, so I lost totally what I did. And so I'm going to cancel this, go back in here, and just choose that one job. I'm going to say the balances report's going to go to job 9500. I'm going to put 100% to that. And again, I'm saying this is 100% of whatever the balance is after I've distributed it, either to days, to a labor category, meaning a cost category, or to a particular cell. And so if I save this now, this is a highly unusual expense report, I have to admit. If I take a look at the distribution summary, it's going to show me exactly what everything, nope, I don't want to translate this page, shows me exactly where all these charges are going to. For example, we took the fuel and we distributed it to a specific job. We took the airfare and did it likewise. Then we have the general things that are being distributed. But the bottom line is we have total expenses of $1854.50 that have been distributed. It's showing us company paid, and they're going to tracking jobs because they're going to credit card jobs. And then it's showing me what's due the employee, $404.50. And we'll just make sure that's the total, and that's exactly what's going on right here. Okay, so the total expense for this expense report is $1854.50, but Shell is only due $404.50 because of these large company expenses up there. Okay, but the distribution summary is going to show you line by line exactly what is happening. Up here, you can also change this. It's going to default to job number, cost element, and category. So job number, cost element, and category. I can make this a simpler report if I wanted to look at it that way. And this will show me the expense going job by job. Or I can break it out job and cost element. And you can see exactly what's going on here. This is the default job, cost element, and category. Or I could get very detailed and go to job number, cost element, category, and date. And this report is obviously very long. But just know you as the employee or you as the approver can change this report to take a look at it whichever way it makes sense to you. But this is something that you would want to review. And this is also where you would see errors. If there were problems with labor categories, bad elements, things like that, it will tell you that you have issues with something that you have in that data, or excuse me, in this report. Okay, so next tab over, again, we have approver information. Again, Amy is still Shell's approver, and nothing has happened on the approval at this particular point. As you can see here, also the expense number 16, status is open. It's telling you the status right here, and it's telling you there's only one approver necessary for this report. Again, I have the ability, if I've really mucked this up and I don't like what I see, I can go in here and delete this report. I'm not going to, so I don't have to replicate it. But one thing that you must do before you leave is make sure you attach your receipts. Every single one of these expenses on this expense report is going to need a receipt. So you're going to need your hotel receipts, your airfare receipts, your rental car receipts, your gas pump receipt, your baggage fees from the airline. The only thing you're not going to need a receipt for is your per diem. And so you simply go in and click on attachments. Again, as I did before with wellness, go out there and choose a file. I only have one demo out here, an expense receipt. It's a hotel receipt that Shell provided me. And I will say this is called Receipts for San Diego. And you simply upload it. And so it has my description. This is the file name as it was sitting out on my database. I can go in there and view this receipt. And there's the receipt I have for the Marriott. Unfortunately, it was for Dayton, Ohio, but hey. But this is how you attach your receipt. You would probably have multiple receipts that you've scanned in. It was on your desktop and you're just pulling it in. You can also go in here and download it. If you wanted to download that, I now have my expense receipt that I could go in there and print if I wanted to, or save it to my desktop, whatever, although I already had it. Or last but not least, if you had a problem with that, you simply go in there and delete it. You're sure you want to delete it, I'll say okay. And I could close this. This means I still have no receipt, so I'm just very quickly going to go grab that receipt again, attach it to my file. Let's call this Receipts for San Diego. Upload it, and then close it. All right, and you can see it is now green. This shows me I've got my receipts behind there. This shows me I've done my expense distribution. These other green cells show me that I have distributions at a lower level than the whole report. And of course, these were the boxes that were showing me that I had unallowable over and above my per diem amounts for my hotel. So I'm going to save this. And so I've got attachments. That looks good. Everything's green. Does anybody have any questions before I submit this in regards to filling it out or lower level distributions, anything along those lines? If you have a question, simply raise your hand and I'll be able to see you. I have Nancy with her hand raised. And hopefully, Nancy, you haven't been raised for a while. Go ahead, Nancy.
No, I just had a question about the trip authorization number and the trip number. Do they have to be in there before you can submit it?
Actually, no, because you have not turned on the facility that you're doing pre-authorizations. So you're going straight to the expense report.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Also, I have a question.
Yeah.
A question from Amy.
Sure.
Can we put all our receipts on one attachment?
Yes, please. It'll be easier for everybody.
Yes, ma'am, it will. We were just
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah. I have to be honest with you, Nancy, that's exactly what I do right now. I just lay them out in some orderly fashion and scan them all together and put one file out there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I also have a question from Jim, and you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, actually I have two questions. Will you show us in the situation you pulled in the daily per diem, but what about the situation where we have a furnished meal, and so we need to remove that from our authorized per diem? How do we do that?
Okay, all you'd have to do, okay, excellent question. That's an excellent question, Jim. Okay, let's say on Tuesday, the client bought you lunch. Let me find out what lunch was. It's $18? Okay, so all you do is you're going to simply go down to that box and lower your per diem. Oh, which day did I say it was? Monday, Tuesday. Okay, so if I take $18 out, I'd only be eligible for $53.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all you have to do. It's just coming there as your defaults, but you're allowed to manipulate them. Now, your company has decided to do it as one line, which is fine. So the per diem comes in as a lump sum for each day. So just decrement it by whatever amount is appropriate.
Okay. This other part probably will be something Amy's going to need to answer us. In the past, when we did hotel, we had to put the cost of the room and taxes separately. Is that something we're still going to be doing? And if so, how do we indicate that?
Wait a minute. Hold on. I think.
No, you should be able to just put the total cost. Yeah.
Now.
I'm sorry?
She said total cost.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about breaking it out anymore. So, okay.
Right.
Amy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
All I was going to say, Amy, if you come to a situation where you believe you need to go back to that process, it would just be a matter of filling in a different line. So that would be up to you whether or not you wanted to do something like that. But Jim, what is set up right now is this is going to be the total cost of the hotel, all inclusive.
I understand.
All inclusive. Okay?
Okay.
All right. If
All right,
you
I'm
mind, I'm
done.
going to mute you again. Okay. Let's see if anybody else has their hands up. Let's see. Nope, no hands. Okay. So I have, let me see. I'm just going to save my report. Whoop, that was not good. What happened here? Going to go back to my direct report. I think I was playing around this when I was doing something, and it was report 16. There it is. Okay, so there's my report. This is my travel to San Diego, and he traveled with Amy, and it didn't save my decrement. I made that, what was that, $53, because they bought me lunch. And so I'm going to go up here and save this. All right, so eXpense has saved my report. I've checked it all out. Again, I just want to stress, you can delete this if you have a problem. It's no problem. Okay, but I am now going to go submit this report. Boink. And you can see up here, the status is going to change to submitted. So let me get back to my presentation just briefly. All right, we talked about distributions. That was good. You know exactly where they are. So this is like a cheat sheet that you have there out on your database. The presentation will tell you everything that I just said. Okay, so you can see where you do cell distribution, the total distribution, etc. There's the report and the fact that you can change the parameters on that report. Locations. Let's just talk about the locations again. When you go in there to look up your location, you have the option of doing it by country or by state or by city. For Oconus, for Alaska, Hawaii, and outside of the United States, you simply put in the country or you put in the state, HI, you're going to get Hawaii. You also have the ability, if for some reason your location is missing, you can go to this website, gsa.gov/per diem, and it would also provide the per diem. And obviously you can hand key it in there. Okay, the rates themselves per your database are set by fiscal year, and they will be updated October 1st of every year, the CONUS rates. The OCONUS locations will be added as needed. So if you have some outdated OCONUS rates or Hawaii or Alaska, all you need to do is just call support and make sure that they know what's going on. And I see Gerald has a question. And I can't unmute your phone. I don't think you put your PIN in. Okay, Mr. Brown, if you would like to, you could type in your question, and you did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have all sorts of questions out here that I haven't seen. Let me take a quick look. Jim McGuire, I think I've got him. Gerald, where would input for tax on hotel, and we just answered that one. Where would you, if the hotel full price with taxes input, wouldn't it be a per diem violation? No. Okay, that's the way I have always done it, so I don't perceive that as a violation at all. Okay, so let me continue on this. So basically, we already went through this. I just put in San Diego. I hit search, and it pulled up San Diego. If for some reason the location you're looking for is not available, you simply go to the government website, put in the search information. It will give you the same information. Attachments, we already took a look at. Just remember, you can view your attachment, you can download the attachment, or you can delete it. And once you add an attachment and you click close, you'll notice that the button goes green. That lets you know that you have an attachment underneath there. Okay, so we took a look at that already. And as you see there, when we closed it, you see the attachment go green. All right, submit. When your expense report is complete, and we just did this, and you verify that everything's okay, you click submit. The one thing I want to emphasize now that we've changed the status to submit on my report is the fact that you no longer can make any changes to your expense report. If you realize after you click submit that you had a problem, basically what you have to do is notify your approver, and he or she can go in there and reject your expense report. That will set the status back from submitted to rejected, and once you make a change on your expense report, it will become open again, and you have the ability to go in there and resubmit it. Okay, so we submitted our report, and so if you did have a problem, or conversely, Amy's taking a look at Shell's expense report and decides she doesn't like something what she sees, or he forgot his attachments, or this, that, or the other thing, she has the ability to go in there and reject it, and I'll show you what she has to do for an approval. Okay, so the employee will have to go in there and fix problems resulted in the rejection, and it's simply done via edit the expense report, and we'll show you how to do that. You would select the rejected expense report from your drop-down list. At that time, you're going to be able to see the explanation your approver gave you for rejecting it. And maybe it simply was, I called Amy and said I made a mistake, please reject it, and that's exactly what you'll say. You just simply fix your errors and resubmit the report. But this is what your report's going to look like when you pull it up. If you did have it rejected, you'll see a red notice up on the top. You see the status is changed to rejected, and then you have information as to the whys of what's going on. Okay, so let's go and see. Let me go back to the presentation, or let's go back to your database. All right, so I have submitted a report, and I have two reports. As you can see here, I'm signed in as Shell, and so I'm going to sign out. And Amy, if you don't mind, I'm going to sign back in as you and let you approve these things. Okay, or actually I'm going to approve them for you, but that's the way it goes. Okay, configuration. This is something that the super users have access to. Is if you're having problems with your database, they can actually sign in with your credentials and see exactly what you see. So I'm going to log in as Amy right now, and as you can see here, I'm logged in as Amy. Now this is for the approvers. This is what you're going to see. You're going to go into My Prime ERP, go into Time and Expense, and I want to go out and look at what I have for expense reports. And I simply come up here under Expense and go to my Approval view, Approve Expense Report. As I said before, you have elected out of pre-authorization. So you're just worrying about expense reports. And here are the two expense reports that Shell had submitted that I just put together. His gym reimbursement and his travel expenses to San Diego. Okay, I'll take a look first. I can get these things queued up. I'm going to select the gym reimbursement. And I can take a look at this. I see what he's done. You notice edit does not allow me to do anything here. Your database is set up that approvers cannot make any changes to your expense reports. If the approver sees something on the expense report that is not proper, they have to reject it. They are not permitted to make any changes to the expense report as you submitted it. And as far as I'm concerned, that is an outstanding choice, because auditors want to make sure that everything lines up. If you had an expense report for $25 and your approver changed it to $50, you've got things out of sync. And so if this was a problem, all Amy would have to do is go in there and reject it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to say maybe Shell has already put in his reimbursement. And I'll say this is a duplicate. Duplicate reimburse. Okay, and continue. And so basically what's happened now, this is back in Shell's queue as rejected. It's also, he'll be getting an email telling him that his expense report has been rejected. You notice up here though, when Amy or any approver comes in here, you can go in here and elect to see everything. anything that's rejected, etc. I can hit retrieve. And now I've got other things out here. You see his rejected report. Normally, though, it's going to default to anything that has been, I'm going to get rid of all, and just say submitted or approved. I can retrieve that. And so in this particular case, I actually had something out there for Shell. Maybe all she wants to look at is approved, or excuse me, submitted items. So she can manipulate this up here to see exactly that she wants to see. If you have delegated your authority to somebody while you're on vacation, you'd see their name up here. Right now, she has no delegations. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at Shell's report, his travel expense. Okay, so this is the travel expense, and as you can see, regardless of which tab I hit, I can't change anything in here. So I'm going to view the expense report, and I can go in here as the approver and take a look. I want to take a look at all of his attachments, or I might choose to download them or whatever I need to do, but I have access to them the same way the user did. I can take a look at the distribution summary. And whoops, not in the right place. I take a look at the distribution summary, and again, I can take a look at this in different ways. I can look at it job by job. I can take a look at it job by cost element. It's going to default to cost element category and job number. Take a look and make sure that all these jobs are proper. Now, if Amy's looking at this and going, oh, no, 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 you know, airfare should be going someplace else, that would be an opportunity that she would take to reject this. But let's make a presumption at this particular point that everything seems to look okay. She's reviewed all this information, and all she needs to do at this particular point is go in there and say approved. Okay, so no longer does she have anything partially approved or submitted in her queue. And so what I would like to show you now is what Shell is going to see. So I have to log out, and I'm going to come back in as Shell. And you can see what he's going to see on his side as far as the approval is concerned and as far as the rejection is concerned. So let me very quickly come in here and find Shell. And I'm going to log in as him. And as you can see, I'm no longer Sue Wills. I'm going over to Prime. And by the way, let me just mention that the vast majority of you will not have all these choices up here. What you're probably going to see if you're an end user, not part of the accounting administration. You'll see Prime, ERP, and Help. That's about all you're going to see. Okay? This is something that the super users or the admin people tend to see. Okay, but I'm going to go to the Prime ERP. I'm going to go to time and expense. I'm going to go look at my expense reports. And what I'm going to do is view my expense reports. And let's see what we got out here in the queue. As you notice here, these are all my, I've obviously been playing with this a lot. You see, I have all sorts of open ones. But here's my rejected gym reimbursement. And I knew I had a rejected one because I just received an email. So I just click on rejected. And it says this report has been rejected. View the details. And this will tell me why Amy rejected it. And she said it's a duplicate reimbursement. And so at this point, I don't have to do anything with this, okay? Because I will just leave this as rejected. There's no need for me to work on this. But if I go in and take a look at my, I forget what, it was 16 implementation meetings in San Diego. You notice now the status is approved. And if I look at the approver information, I can see who approved it and when they actually approved it. And you can see the status has changed to approved. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned as the user, I am finished. There's nothing else that I have to do. I have completed my cycle and my approver has to worry about things. Okay, so we already looked at the entry after rejection. I could go in there and change it if I needed to. If it didn't say duplicate and it said you put the wrong amount, all Shell would have to do on that rejected report is just change the amount, resave it, resubmit it, and he'd be good to go. Now this has to do with AP, just to let you know down at the end what's happening. Only approved reports can be released, and this is what's happening in your database. Once your report has been approved, it essentially is sitting in the queue over in accounts payable to be paid. And they simply go in to release the expense reports. And what they will see is anything that's sitting out there that has been approved. And then they will make a decision as to when and where they're going to pay these things. But you all are not part of the AP process, but just to give you an idea of where it's going. After something has been approved, it gets in the queue over in finance, accounts payable, ready to be released. And once I release these things, they actually become a voucher, an AP voucher or bill that can be paid. That's a preview of coming attractions if you ever go to AP. Okay? And so once the expenses have been released, you simply follow the normal process for paying bills. And so what has happened? Okay, as soon as somebody has touched it, okay, I just want to talk about, I guess, almost troubleshooting at this particular point. Process reports cannot be amended, appended, edited, or otherwise changed. And a report is considered to be archived or processed as soon as AP has released it. And so if you find out after the fact that you have an expense report that's sitting waiting to be paid that is incorrect, essentially you have to, first of all, deal with the AP ramifications. If it's a bad bill, you would just delete that bill. If it's already been paid, you're going to have to reverse it. But the bottom line is you cannot amend an expense report. So if you find out way after the fact that you have a problem with your expense reports, it's going to be a twofold issue. First of all, you're going to have to figure out where in the queue it is in AP. But secondly, in eXpense, what you're going to have to do is produce another expense that's correct and just reference the bad one. Okay? So, approvers, okay. So these are archive reports. I just showed you what was going on over there. It'll show you reports that are archived that you can go back and look at reports that you've already done. And if you're not an expense reporter and you are admin, you have the ability to do mass enter. You can take a look at previously approved and processed or archived expenses through mass entry. And I just showed you, you have many filters on the screen that you can sort, or you can just click retrieve and you'll retrieve everything. Okay, so this would be what the admin would do, is just going over to mass entry, taking a look, saying I want to see everything for Shell that has been archived, and these would all be things that have been approved and processed in AP. So you can always take a look at your expenses way after the fact, after they've been archived. The only thing I want to emphasize is you cannot change it. Okay? If for some reason you need to print your expense reports, regardless of what the status is, this particular one is approved, all you have to do is click on the print and it will produce a report. And the print is going to display some information. First of all, if you can't remember what form you're using, it's going to tell you the form name right on top. It's going to display your expense report. It's going to display all your distributions. And then last but not least, it's going to display your approver information. So let me ask, and unfortunately I have either hands raised or Amy. Do you have any questions? Or Amy, is there anything that you would like to communicate to the end users?
No, I don't have any questions, but obviously if you guys do have questions, you can send email to me or Shell.
I would also say, Nancy, you have your hands raised. Nancy, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask Amy, when can we start doing these expense reports? We have a couple folks that are behind a couple trips.
Let me get, we'll be sending that information out. I'll get with Shell after the second training today, and we'll decide which, whether it's tomorrow or what the day is that we're going to be, have people start going in.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and so Amy, the presentation itself, if you want to distribute it, is sitting on your learning.jamis.com site, your L&D site. It's under accounts payable. And I also attached it to the webinar here, and I don't know if anybody was able to pull it up, but you do have an attachment, a handout, sitting on your webinar, and it's just the presentation that I just used. So I see another question from Neil. Go ahead, Neil.
Yes, on the previous expense reports, we had to break out taxes for hotel charges from the base hotel fee. Is that still holding true, and how do we handle that?
Okay, that is, the decision was made by management, Dawson management, that you're going to just put in the full amount for, you're not going to break out the taxes any longer. So it's going to be a single line item.
That's going to create a lot of problems with our contract rep when he sees us going over per diem. How do we handle that, Amy? Or we can handle this offline.
But actually, we
can talk about that offline.
All right, per diem only applies to baseline hotel charges. And if your baseline hotel charges are in excess of per diem, it is broken out on the expense report. And you will see exactly what is in excess of per diem. Now, Amy, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have never known taxes to be part of the per diem equation. And I think Amy is muted right now, but that is my understanding, Neil. Okay. I also have Nancy Mosley.
Oh, can I ask, just to clarify?
Go ahead.
Are we to enter in the full charge for that day or just the base charge?
The full charge. Okay. Let me go back to let me go back over to Prime. Let's pull up that particular expense report so there's no confusion. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the expense report that I created for his travel to San Diego. In this particular case, you notice my per diem for San Diego was $142 was maximum lodging. Okay, Shell charged or stayed in a hotel that charged, the baseline charge was $200. And so automatically this form, you're going to put the total amount in there. This form is going to push anything in excess off to unallowable. And that's where it's going to show up right down here. So your client would be able to see that. Does that answer your question?
If you're in the case where you're on the road and the company isn't paying for the hotel and it forces this unallowable amount.
It will do the same, yeah. Well, it forces an unallowable amount. It's not going to not reimburse you. It's just putting it in a different category. If you were paying for it yourself, actually, you wouldn't have it up here. You'd have it down here. You would be putting it on this line where it is employee paid. These are company paid expenses. These are employee paid expenses. And I have Nancy Mosley with their hand up, but I cannot unmute you because you didn't put in an audio pin. I'm sorry. But I have a question from Keith. Go ahead, Keith. And Ben, I'll get to you in a minute.
What about when you're on a longer term job and you've got per diem in those weeks that you're not traveling? You don't have a travel day on the Monday or the Friday.
Okay. In these, okay, you're actually assigned someplace. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, we're at a location and we're here for a few months, so we have long-term per diem.
Okay. You would just continue. Now, that's going to be a Dawson decision as to how frequently that you need to put in your travel expenses. They might have you do it week by week. You could put it all together as one, or maybe you get reimbursed every 2 weeks. What you would do is, you see, I only have 1 week sitting out here, but you can create additional weeks on this report. But as far as not traveling, if I was assigned to San Diego temporary assignment, I would just list San Diego up here and disregard all this stuff because you're not doing it, but just put in your per diem.
Okay, so we could just put in for that week, because we didn't do it a week at a time, so just put in the week.
Well,
On the first day, we could copy it for the rest of the week.
exactly. What I'm going to
Okay.
say, though, Keith, is it Keith? I forget who
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking to. My apologies. I'm going to have to defer to Amy and to your management as to how frequently they would like you to submit those reports. But there's nothing that precludes you from putting in it week by week, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever is decided.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're certainly welcome. Okay, I also have a hand raised. Ben's hand was raised, but he does not have an audio pin. Nancy McHugh, did you have another question? Or are you good? Okay, your hand came down. Neil, I can't talk to you because your pin's not in. Your hand's down too. Keith, I've already answered your question. So, Nancy, let me see if you put in a question. Okay, what falls under indirect travel? Okay, and I don't know who, Nancy, that might have been your question. As far as indirect travel, okay, if I go to, let me go to travel reports again and I'll just pull up an indirect expense, okay? There is virtually no difference between the format of the expense report for direct travel versus indirect travel. The biggest change is going to be the job you assign that expense to. You put it to overhead or you put it to G&A versus putting it to a direct job. That is really the only difference between indirect and direct, because it seems like from the format that was decided upon for your travel expense, the rules for per diem and hotel, etc., for direct versus indirect are identical. Amy, did you have anything you wanted to say on that point?
Nope, that was good.
Okay, so it's simply what you're going to charge to at this point. Okay. All right. Well, I don't see any other hands. I want to remind you again that the presentation is out on your L&D site. You can go grab that. Amy, if you have people that are not, do not have access to the L&D site, feel free to grab it and download it from the L&D site and post it someplace where the rest of your population can go grab it if they need it. But I will be forwarding you the recording after we complete this. And so at this point, I just want to thank everybody for your rapt attention, I think, anyway. Great questions. And I wish you the best of luck. As far as I'm concerned, the expense module has served me very well for almost 20 years. And it's a very quick way for me to get my expenses in. I do travel a lot. It's real easy. It's user-friendly. It tends to be intuitive. And so if you have any questions, feel free to call your management, your internal help desk. The internal help desk, if they have any problems, will call our support. But take a look at the presentation. I think that will answer most of your questions. So I thank you very much, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Take care.